Yep, that's it. All right.
We're live.
Good
Boo!
morning.
Boo! Happy Halloween,
Good.
everyone.
Is
Olive,
it? Hello.
I love your costume.
Thank you. But you
I
could
don't know.
recognize me though. That's kind of sucks.
Yeah, yeah,
I thought I was going to, but no. I guess you got me, man. Is it the
yeah.
knife skill that gave me away?
Do you remember that giant whisk that I had?
Yes.
I gave you. You guys have it there in the kitchen somewhere. It was a um, there it is. I
You
uh,
mean
I
that?
was I was tending bar one year at Cesar, and I dressed in a chef's coat,
Oh
and I
wow.
had that whisk, and I put flour all over my face, and I went as a sort of a mad baker.
Oh shit.
Then
So,
one year I dressed as a priest, and
but
I carried a copy around of the bartender's Bible.
whoa, that's funny. That's good. Yeah, Halloween was yesterday. I didn't even,
No,
man.
no, Halloween's
No.
today. Today,
Oh,
today is
oh my
Halloween.
God. It's
Yeah,
tonight. So it's
yeah.
Monday night though. I was wondering, is that so it happened the weekend or what? Like I completely
Well,
am
it's
lost.
always on the 31st, so whenever that
Well, no, I
falls.
right. But like people are gonna celebrate what?
Yeah, they'll
That
go out and
weekend
trick or
or
treat. Yeah. Some people do. Some people have parties on the weekend. Some people even go trick or treating on the weekends. I think most kids are going to go out tonight. Uh, it
tonight?
was a
Okay.
it was a big deal when I was a kid. We'd go out when I was really little. We'd go trick or treating, and then when I got older, we would just go out and create mischief, smash pumpkins, and
Yeah, when I got older, I just got some free candies for the year,
yeah.
right?
One
So
time when I was really little, we went trick or treating. One of the first times I went, and I had a bag, but it was so big that it dragged on the ground as I walked, so it wore a hole in it. When I got home, I realized that I had no candy. It had all
oh
fallen
no.
out of my bag, and I was just heartbroken.
Uh,
So my big brother, who had a big bag full of candy, he sat down and he divvied out his candy with me, and he divided his candy, gave me half his candy. Wasn't that nice? What a guy.
I guess. I mean, is that
Yeah.
what you're supposed to do between brothers? Fight?
Well, we did fight
Not
all the time, but he was
okay.
pretty
Yeah,
nice that day.
me too.
Maybe he just
So
wanted to
Halloween,
rot
man.
my teeth.
Hey, I love your helmet.
What helmet?
The head helmet. Oh no, that's a earphone.
It's
I got
just a
it. I got
little rash. It's nothing to worry about.
it. It's from the candies. So today we're going to talk about the Halloween, but not just the Halloween. I don't want to talk about Halloween because everybody talks about it, but we're going to talk about holidays. What did it come from, right?
You know,
And
everybody
I was
talks
good.
about Halloween, but no one does anything about it. Yeah,
Except dressed. So we're going to talk about holidays, how they were born, and I want to talk about the circus because as soon as you said Halloween, my first thought was the circus and the holidays and what's happening? Why do we have holidays? That's pretty cool, right?
it's to get days off from work, I thought.
Well, like I mean, I remember the medieval time. I remember very well. I was there.
Yeah.
I think you have some type of 100 days of holidays or something,
Wow.
or s- or something like yeah, because it was a holidays for everything. Because then I was reading about this in the food. You know, you could not eat meat during a bunch of times. I forgot. Anyway,
Right.
so
Well,
I want to talk.
there were lots of food associations with holidays. Holidays, basically, as we were talking about before, they all revolve around agriculture
And religion.
and religion. But that even that
So
it had to do with the
right,
seasons and the
yeah,
change
yeah,
of
yeah,
seasons and
yeah,
the harvest. And
right.
Halloween
So
is interesting because November 1st was considered kind of the beginning of a new season, and the 30 between the 31st and the 1st, they believed that the line between the living and the dead was very thin, and that's when spirits could come out and your loved ones could come back to see you. And in the Gaelic tradition, there were all these ritualistic ceremonies that they would observe. The holiday was called Samhain, and it was a pagan religion or a pagan holiday, and they would celebrate this, and often they would wear costumes to so that the spirits wouldn't recognize them, and
What?
they were probably just pelts, they were probably like animal skins or something, but they would also hollow out gourds and use them for lanterns, and that may be the origins of our carving pumpkins, and I don't know.
Right. So the celebration of holidays is very old, and there's a very close link to circus also, because it's kind of the same idea. It's anything in power, could be the government or any of that, would need a sorry, something to entertain the people, to keep
Right.
them entertained, right? And this is what one of the start was in a circus in Rome. I was trying to find more ancient origin, and I'm sure there is, because you could see chariots in Egypt. So I bet you they had some type of celebration. I mean, I know they were showing everybody was showing their army. Any type of
Right.
person in power would show their army, and I'm sure in Babylon or all these people, the Persian, Arabs, they had to do some type of holiday. I can't find that anyway. So the circus,
And
from what I
circus
found, was
itself comes from the Latin for circle, so
yeah,
it was always a ring,
right,
and which you still see in circuses today. There's the big
right,
ring, the
right.
three-ring circus, and
And by the way, guys, I did work in a circus when I was young. Cirque Zavata, one of the most famous cirque in Europe. Zavata, because Zavata is my friend. He has a show now. Warren Zavata is a super show in Paris. He's a comic,
were you the
and I used to
lion
work with
tamer?
him. They had animals until 15 years ago. Oh no, I'm sorry, until 25 years ago.
Huh?
And then they removed them. They removed the animal. It was too much to keep up to make them happy, the animals, right?
Yeah.
And it was becoming too bad. People, the animals were really unhappy, because when you have enough money, you can have bigger space for the animals. But as the money was getting lower and lower, they had trouble keeping those animals the way they should be. I remember, so they got rid of the animal like 25 or 30 years ago, the Zabatak circus, and then some
Yeah.
kept some, but yeah. And then
Yeah,
the animal rights came in.
there was a lot of outcry in this country about the way
Yeah, of
animals were
course.
treated in the circus, and that's why
Well,
they've all
yeah,
gotten rid of them. I mean, even the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey
yeah,
Circus,
yeah.
they basically don't have animals anymore, which
Yeah, I mean that.
is a good thing. It was always
Yeah,
kind of bizarre, the
yeah,
elephants
yeah,
kneeling
yeah, yeah.
down, and
Wow, it's crazy. The tigers. I mean the tigers. Jeez.
but it was a big
Anyway,
deal in small town America. It was a big deal when the circus came to town. What they
yeah,
would do is they would parade the whole circus through the town, down the main street of the town, and it was a way to drum up business and excitement about the circus. So they'd have the elephants and the horses, and they'd have
non
box
mais
cars
attends.
with lions in them, and they'd have the clowns and jugglers and everything, and they would just go through the town on their way out to wherever they were going to set up their
Well, I
circus.
know. That's what I used to do. I used to be in the car I forgot the name of the car, but so we come in the circus. The circus was every day, right? So every day we go to a town, a small town, and we'd set up the circus and everything.
Wow.
Ah, and so as the morning, so we come like around 6 or something, we start mounting the chapiteau. And as we do that, we have a little car with a big thing on the truck with like, well, these guys are clown, and we go, and tonight, monsieur, the circus avatar. And we'd go in the town just like that every day. And then we had this music. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh,
It was
that's
fun.
funny.
And
There's
then I
a
was driving a truck that has no brake.
so
So big truck,
that was
man.
entertaining in itself, is just to
Oh my
see how
God.
you were
And
going to stop
so
the
the way, because they could not fix the brakes, so it's too expensive. So the way we do it is we had two cars in the front, because in front it's not too crazy, right? So we go like this, except when you go to the mountain. So we drive around, so it goes down and it goes up, right? So as we go down, I have to make sure there's no car coming in, and we have two cars in the front to make sure the passage is straight. So when the truck goes, we have to make sure we can't stop. Like you have brakes, but they're done. So the brakes are just metal on metal. The old truck, we couldn't change that, right? So we had to think when we are up the hill, and we go. There's no stopping, and we go to up to the other way, and to stop at the same thing. We have a car either to stop us or to get rid of the. It was pretty epic, man.
Well,
Circuits are crazy.
that explains a lot about your driving today.
It's really hard to drive, yeah. That's probably.
I had an old car when I was a teenager that the brakes went out, and I had to drive
Oh
home
yeah.
from a party one night, and I had to do that. I'd go up on curbs, I'd do all this stuff just to
Right.
slow the car down, and
Oh, that was crazy.
it's crazy.
And then we had to set up the circus, and then at night when it was done, so we were done about 8:30 or 9. That was we have two shows, one during the day, one at 6, one at 5 or 6, and at the end of the show we had to undo the chapiteau, we had to undo everything, and then we go out and drink, and then man, every day like whoa, that was a really hard life, fun but hard, and then you have to go back to morning. The biggest issue with the main mast, that mast,
Uh-huh.
we had to take it down and put it up, and that was my shoulder, man,
It's
because
like a telephone pole, right?
it's huge. No, it's huge. So you have to like bring it down really slowly, with cords. But to bring it to the space, you have to carry it. It's man carried. So our shoulder is, and then you have to put it like this. You have to
Mm-hmm.
dig a hole. You have to have this metal thing, and then you have to make sure it goes, but it doesn't go like and fall. So
Right,
every day this
right.
thing. And then all the other one are easier, but the main mass was the hardest one to put. And then you have to put the whole tent. Oh my god.
So you know the great the great Italian filmmaker Fellini. There's a
Yes.
famous quote by him where he said that his early influences were sex, circus, and the cinema. And you can really
Oh
see
wow.
that in his movies. I don't know if you've ever seen La Strada, but
Yes,
there's
I've seen all
there's
this movie, man. Are you kidding?
yeah, there's a whole sequence where
Fellini? No, no,
they
no.
meet up with the circus, and it's interesting because
Oh
all the
yeah.
people, they all live together, they travel together.
So the
Um,
circus I was affiliated to is basically an Italian circus. Zavata is one of the
oh,
oldest circus and one of the most famous in Europe. And I was working with that family because he was my friend. And that's when I had no money for a while. I was completely like broke as hell, and I lost my restaurant, and I had to work somewhere. And I was working for 30, sorry, that 30. Um, I think it was like 60 francs a day. So that's like 15 bucks a
wow,
day.
yeah,
And you don't punch in. You work from 6 to like whatever, right? There's no,
right,
there's no overtime.
right.
It's cash. The end of the day, everybody gets paid. There's a line, and everybody gets paid at the end of the night. And we go spend that right in the club or the bar, and that's it. And we come back tomorrow morning, and that's the same exact thing every day.
Yeah, 15 bucks a day is not much unless you're used to making
It was fine.
zero a
It was
day.
yeah, right, right. No, it was fine because we were fed, and
Yeah,
that was just for drinking. And we were there was no we don't need a hotel. We were not going very far, so I could either go home or stay with them in the trucks.
yeah.
But it was not like
Interesting.
yeah, it was fun.
Interesting.
So if you're in Paris, people, and if you want a really fun, my friend Warren Zavata has a show, a one-man show that's really, really, really good, doing well. That's the second show. It's really cool. So you guys, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm cooking.
We did
I
notice.
um I am doing. There's a bunch of food in the food. This is really good. Wagyu ground beef, grass fed. I got too much. I got some shallots, a bunch of. I'm just cooking my shallot just like that, very gently, with olive oil and some chilies, some Thai chilies, and then I'm gonna put my meat in there, that's it, and make a little
Nice.
food, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And you're going to eat it just as is then.
Oh my God, yeah. You guys, I'm sorry I eat lots of meat. I know people are gonna hate me, and I don't care. I really don't care. You know, I was talking to someone one day. We're talking about feeling and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, but you." I'm like, "No, no, no. I don't care about feelings. I don't care about your feeling. I care about facts. I'm not. I'm too old for that. Like I
Yeah.
used to be. No, I don't care. Like I care about facts exclusively. Exclusively. I just wanna make sure I eat properly and I don't get sick ever. That's all that's important. Okay? And
Yeah.
I have a really, really good. I'm gonna put a bunch of salt. Really bad for me, right? Good salt. Look at that. Woo,
I love when
man.
I hear people say, well, but I read on the internet that just like, oh my God.
They don't say on the internet. They say they say they. I'm like,
Yeah,
all
they
right.
say.
I need name, man. This is enough.
I heard that meat's really bad for the planet. I heard that, yeah, who'd you hear that from?
Yeah, and so now I say, give me the facts, man. Don't tell me how you feel. How you
Yeah,
feel is not important. What I want to know is facts. Just give me the facts, which I know already.
right.
But don't bullshit, man. So I'm gonna put my meat here, and I'm gonna put a lot of herbs. And you guys, this is my herbs. Just so you know, I want to show you something. This is all the herbs that I keep, right? I cook every day. So I keep that was originally fresh. Now they're dried. So this is herb de Provence. That's what it is. You see what I mean? And I keep that. I know I already told you that. And then I put boxes, right? And I mix them up. I remove the leaves, all the leaves, right? And I put them in a thing. Look at this. This is my herb de Provence. See that?
Yep.
That's the same one that I'm gonna pick. Smells so good because this is super herbs, right? I buy organic food.
You could
So
pay a
now
lot
I
of money.
have,
You could pay a lot of money for a small tin of herb de
right, exactly.
Provence.
So everything is dry. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick all the leaves. I'm gonna put it in a box, and that's my new herb de Provence. So I can keep buying fresh herbs
Or
and keep doing my
or
meat.
in our case, pick them.
Yeah, right.
We
So,
grow a ton of herbs.
hey, let's keep talking about the celebration, James. But I would love to be, man. Can you prepare a show on how to grow your herbs? Because I don't know how to do it. I've tried.
Yeah,
I've tried to grow my herbs. They completely disappeared. They're dead. So I'm sure there must be something not too difficult that we could do, like a little show on how to do that at home.
sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, my wife is the expert, but
Right, right.
we grow them in pots in the garden out back, and
Yep.
they
So let's
do
do that
really
next
well.
time. Let's not worry about it today, but I
Okay.
really want to do it. So I'm going to put that, and then all I need to do is basically take all the leaves, crush them in my hand, dump it in meat. Okay? All right, keep going. Sorry. That was my little.
Okay, that's great. That's great, Olive. But I still say you could go to the store and pay a bunch of money and get a small tin of that. We,
So I'm going to use that. I'm going to break it in my hand. Okay? Yeah. I'm going to put a lot. So
Nice. So what are you putting in there right now? It's thyme and sage and
I have no idea. You know what I mean? It's like it's whatever. It's okay. So that's a
it
good
doesn't
question.
matter, right?
No, no, it doesn't matter. But that's a great question. So herb de Provence is usually from the same family. It's mint. So savory, sage, lavender, all this stuff, one family, mint. So they kind of go together. So marjoram, whatever. So here and there, I have some rosemary, sage, whatever, thyme, savory. I don't know what's in there, right? It doesn't matter. But I can tell you, it smells like ooh.
Sage,
And I'm not going to
rosemary, and
cook it.
thyme. That would make a good song.
Yeah, but nobody's thinking about those things, right? And I have a bunch of meat, and I can, get a good salad. I have sweet potato in the oven. There was some sweet potatoes that was going to go bad. I just shove it in the oven at 400 degrees for 35 minutes. Boom, done. Cool. All right, let's keep going with
All right.
circus stuff. Cool.
Well, like we said,
Also,
almost all of these holidays revolve around
yeah,
the
right.
seasons. They revolve around nature. I mean, it's no coincidence that Christmas falls when it does and Easter falls when it does, because it's the change of the seasons. Now, um, the the early Christians, they decided on December 25th as the holiday because the pagans were already celebrating the solstice. So it was very easy to get them on board with a new holiday, a new celebration. And
Now,
um,
Jim, can you give us a definition of pagan?
um, well, I use it loosely, but it's basically it was basically people that worshiped nature. Their
Right,
religion was all about nature. It was all about being
right,
in connection with nature, in tune with nature, because it was all about food. You know,
right. So
you want to make sure that you've got a good crop, that there's plenty of wheat growing, that all of the animals are healthy. And a lot of people believed that in order to do this, you had to celebrate and make sacrifices in some cultures. And that's how all of these traditions arose, because it was about appeasing the spirits, appeasing the
right,
gods, to make sure that
either
the crop
that,
came in.
not just appeasing. It was that or encouraging. You can either
Yeah,
appease or encourage. So
yeah.
it's always talking to the God in a way of food, sacrifice, you know, and um, you're talking about pagan. So can we say that pagan, it would be like, it's not like agnostic, right? It's a little bit different because you
No, it's
do, right.
I mean,
So
they
for
have their
example,
own gods, but again, they're just not they just don't
yeah,
believe in one god and one,
yeah.
they believe in
No, no,
nature. It's
no,
all about nature. It's all about uh
right,
the seasons, the crops, how the land grows, how the rain
right.
falls. It was very important to be in tune with all of that.
And even
And
if you're not pagan, because the Egyptian, they were, I mean, everybody was praying at something. The
right,
Egyptian was praying so the Nile would be very generous that year, because if you don't have the Nile, there's no crop,
right,
there's no growing. So
right. I mean, it's still true today. I mean, talk to any farmer in Iowa,
yeah,
they are all about the weather. They are all about, anticipating the seasonal changes, anticipating what's going on with the weather, and they live or die by the weather. It's big business today, more so than just like feeding your
right,
family, but
right,
it's still stuff growing out of the ground, and you're dependent on rain and wind and sun, and you can't get too much rain. You don't want late rain. You want, it's such a precarious
yeah,
business, which is
right.
why a lot of people don't want to be farmers anymore, because it's just too friggin' hard.
That sucks, huh? Because now if we don't have any more farmers, I don't know what's gonna happen to our food, but
I
yeah,
I was talking to somebody once, and I said, I would they said, well, the young people don't want to take over the farms, and I said, well, I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to be a farmer. And they say, why? I mean, why? It's a noble profession. I said, look, I'm not saying it's beneath me. I'm saying it's really friggin' hard.
it's hard.
That's why I
Yeah,
don't want to do it.
it is really
It's a
hard.
hard, hard life.
But I would love to go back now. Now I would love to have a farm.
Well, I would too.
That's my next step.
Now
I
you got to
think,
be a millionaire to have a farm.
well, maybe not like a big farm, but like something more small that I can do a lot of cool stuff. Anyway,
You have to be
we'll get
very
there.
rich so you can buy a farm and make a little bit of money.
Yeah. Uh,
I mean, a lot of the farming that's done in the Midwest today is done with huge machines and monoculture, and it's a very
yeah, but
big
you
industrial
know,
machine. But
it's going away. So now there's something called regenerative farming that you can go see more and more. And I'm really excited to that because that means that maybe we're going to take care of our land finally,
that,
right?
that maybe we'll survive. Yeah.
I doubt that, but at least the land is going to be fine.
Well, there's been a back to the land movement ever since the 60s and 70s,
Right. So it has to.
and
We have to keep going.
and
We're
it's
losing our
gone up
farms.
and down, it's
Right.
gone
Right.
up and down, but there's still a lot of people that are going back to these traditional food ways,
Right.
cheesemakers, bakers, brewers, farmers, people that grow crops. I know a woman here in Berkeley who has a flower farm on top of a building right in the middle of Berkeley.
Wow.
And it's so beautiful up there. It's a very
Wow.
modern apartment building, and
That's crazy.
she's got all these raised beds on top of the roof, and it's so wonderful to be up there. And she grows beautiful flowers. Of course, she shuts down for a couple months in the winter, but
Okay.
she grows like 10 months a year or something, 9, 10 months a year. Of course, this
Wow.
because we're in California. If she was on a rooftop in New York, her growing season would be considerably shorter, but
Right.
still, it's a very cool thing to do. And that's another thing. There was a florist, a local florist, who had a sign out that they advertised that they carried organic flowers. And one of my customers said to me once, he goes, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You don't eat the flowers." And I just
Oh,
looked at him and I
yeah.
said, "Man, you really don't get it, do you? It's not all about you. It's not about what you're eating and ingesting. Organic
Right.
agriculture is far bigger than just making sure you don't get chemicals on your plate.
Yeah, right.
So,
True that. True that.
I'm all about organic flowers.
Wow,
And
me
also
too.
it's nice to get local flowers, because otherwise you're buying flowers that have to be shipped around the world. I mean, a lot of the flowers are grown in Mexico and South America, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's nice to be able to get flowers that were grown right here in the Bay Area, as well as food, and there's
Yeah.
plenty of that. So yeah, all these holidays, and the reason so many holidays have
Right.
food traditions that go along with
Right.
them is because
Yes.
it's the food that's readily available at that time of year. I mean, obviously, of course, you can get
Pumpkin.
anything today. You can
But
get
so what the
you can
what
get
are with the pumpkin
strawberries in
bone?
February now if you want to, but traditionally, if you were celebrating something in the middle of the winter, you were celebrating with root vegetables and apples and all this kind of stuff that either is harvested at that time, or foods that can be harvested in the fall and put in a cellar and keep over the winter. People lived on root vegetables at one time because you just didn't get fresh vegetables in the wintertime.
Well,
Now you can, of
even
course, but
no, but the root vegetables are that's what people are eating in the how do you call that? Those people that was hunting, the hunter and
hunter
gatherer.
gatherers, right? Sure, sure.
They were eating roots. Then they were eating berries or berries and berries and meat and cheese and almonds. But that's it. There was no vegetables.
Well,
Right.
and the cheese would have been very crude, because if you were on the move, you didn't
Right.
have a cheese cellar to age cheese, so all the cheese you ate was probably extremely fresh.
Well, no,
And
they age it just like they dry it. They just like a goat cheese. I know in France you put them on those wood stuff and they just dry. It's not a big deal.
right, right, but you're not going to make big wheels of Parmigiano Reggiano if
Oh,
you're an if
right,
you're a
right.
nomad. I mean, the
But
earliest
so
cheeses
vegetables
were
have been
just
created. Vegetables to eat have been created. It's called cultivars.
yeah,
They are made for human consumption, which we did very good because now they're great, right? But the problem with vegetables today is they're lacking nutrients, and then people that rely on that to get their nutrients, it's not happening. So that's my point. You don't know what's going on with that that how much is in there the vegetables today. They're disgusting. So yeah, great, eat that. But I mean,
all the more reason to go to the farmers market and to,
yeah, that's for sure. That is absolutely for sure. Yeah,
Berkeley
no, me too.
Bowl and Monterey Market.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah, yeah, yeah.
places that we should all be
Because
buying our vegetables.
exactly because these places they buy directly from the farmers. If you go to Berkeley Bowl, Montreal Market and stuff, that's where it is. Okay, and the market in Berkeley are beautiful. Huh? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure. No, you know what?
fabulous.
It's not true. I mean, it's true, but there's a lot of farmers market everywhere. I've been to the Marine one. It's absolutely incredible. Auckland, the farmers market in what is that? Jack London. That's really cool.
Yeah, there are several in
I've
San
been
Francisco.
lots of. Oh yeah, there's of course the big one, huh?
Yeah.
The Quesa. That's really, really
Well,
amazing.
there's the one at the Ferry Building. There's the one
Yeah,
in
that,
front of the
that,
City Hall. There's several of them around. Um,
wow. And then
uh,
in Moraga, I went to the one in Moraga. Oh my God, that was so cool.
but
So
they're
farmers market.
but they're everywhere
Yeah,
across the country. I mean, I went to a really good
yeah.
farmers market in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's around the square where the Capitol building sits, and all around on the street
Wow.
on Saturdays is a farmers market, and
Yeah, that's great.
it was great. There used to be a wonderful restaurant in Madison called L'Etoile, and it was kind of it was very I mean this was 30 years ago. I think it's still there, but they bought a lot of their stuff at the farmers market. They were very much farm to table.
Right.
Menu changed all the time.
Cool.
um,
Done. All
Very
right, that's
cool.
done. Look at
Cool.
that. Look at how
Pretty.
much I got. Look at God. See? And this doesn't go bad, right? You understand what's happening with the dry herbs? They dry and they lock their flavors, their oils in. So now they last forever. Not forever, but I mean, pretty. I'm going to put a box. This is done. This is all done. Look at that. Really good. Smells so good. Good fat. Beautiful stuff.
Now how do you plan to eat that? Just as is, or are
Just
you
like
going to
that.
make a salad out of
Little,
it, or?
sure, little salad. Put that. Eat that. Just like that. There's some sweet potato coming out. Might do the trick.
Very nice.
Let me
Well,
put my herbs into something. Yeah, sorry. So I want to talk about the circus also.
okay.
The circus. What? No, no. The origin of circus. That was pretty cool. So the only origin I found, but the origin of the modern circus was at 1900, 1876, something, right?
You
But
mean the
the old
modern
circus,
circus in America? Yeah.
but otherwise it's circus from which one? Maximilius? The no Maximus.
hmm The
That was
Circus
holding
Maximus. It
was
still
holding
exists.
right. It was holding like 150,000 people or more, like something crazy, right?
Yeah, I've been to it. The stands are gone, but the you can still see the circle where the circus was, the
Oh
Circus
yeah.
Maximus, and that's where they did the chariot races.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but lots of other stuff too. I mean, they had all kinds of competitions
Right.
and entertainments. I imagine they had some form of clowns because that goes back to ancient times as well. The whole tradition of the jester and the clown. The Commedia dell'arte had certain
Wow.
comic characters, and
The clowns. So this is a kind of an interesting kind of a trick. So the troubadour. Do you say troubadour here? Is that
yeah, yeah.
so troubadours? The jest is the same, right? Jest and troubadour is the same thing, right?
We think of
They,
troubadour as somebody that sings songs and plays instruments, and
right, but then they don't just sing songs; they tell stories
oh, right,
because
right.
there was no. So that's how the stories were conveyed in the world. They go from town to town and they sing their ballad, which was telling a story of the king, the princess, the whatever, the knight, right? And that's how the history was conveyed. There was no books. Books was
It,
very rare, right?
it's interesting to think that 99.9999% of human existence, there was no mass media, there was no television, of
Right.
course, no movies, no radio, and for most of that time there weren't even books. And even when there began to be books, most people couldn't read them anyway, so they were only read by scholars that could read the language of the scholars, Latin, Greek,
Read and
Arabic.
read and interpret. So you have people that
Right,
read and interpret. So that
right,
means that you
right,
have no idea what really
right.
went on.
But
Nobody
my
knew
point,
really.
but my point is that in all those years,
Right,
things like a circus,
right,
troubadours, traveling theaters, they were vitally important because people had virtually no entertainment except what they could come up with themselves. Plus, it was a way of finding out what was going on in the world. These people would come into your town, and like you said, they would tell stories. and they would also bring news with them. So you'd find
There was
out
a
what
there
people
was a
were
few
doing
books,
on the other
right?
side of the mountain.
There was some books, but like you said, nobody could access them. And
Right,
there's a bunch of history books, but most of the history for the people, how the history was conveyed was by troubadour, by gestures that go
right.
town to town and tell the stories of this and this and this. And that's
And it
it.
was
That
probably
was
it
it.
was probably more accurate history too, because as the old saying goes,
I don't
hi
know, man.
history's always written by the winners, you know?
Yeah,
So the
exactly. So
people
I don't
that
know
write
that.
history don't necessarily, they skew it towards to make themselves
Well,
look good, or
yep. Or they have an agenda. I mean, you have to you're telling a story in a direction. Yes, of course.
and a lot of the stories the troubadours would tell were mythological, or
Yeah.
and that myths were a great form of entertainment. I mean, gosh, the stories around the Roman gods and the Greek gods, this was great
Which are the
entertainment.
same, by the way.
Right, right, just different names.
One took the other one.
Yeah. Well, the Romans got most of their cultural foundations from Greece. They
Yep.
tried to emulate Greece a lot. They emulated Greece in the architecture, in the art, in the food,
Everybody did.
in
Everybody did. Like
the
that's
form
why
of government, everything.
after the medieval times, at the end around 1450s or 1500, La Renaissance is the back to the Roman style with the columns and the it's
Hmm.
really that. So it was a big deal.
Even in
So the
America,
Greek,
you go to Washington,
oh yeah,
D.C., and it
the
it
columns,
looks like ancient Rome. I mean, the pillars, the columns, the domes
yeah,
on top of the buildings. It was all built to emulate that kind of because
right,
it's monumental. You know, they wanted things to look monumental. They wanted it to
yeah.
look important. It's hard to get people in awe of what you're doing if you're in a little one-story bivouac holding
That's the
government.
thing.
But
That's
if
why
you've
they
got
were
a
building.
giant building with a giant dome and
I
flags
know,
and pillars and
right?
columns, people are in kind of in awe. The first time I actually saw the Capitol building in Washington D.C. and just saw how massive it
Oh
is,
wow.
it's impressive. I mean, all of that,
Wow. Well,
all those monuments.
when I went to Greece, I went to the Acropolis, right?
Hmm.
And it was so beautiful. And I was young, and I was 15 and a half or something. I went with my friend all over Europe, and then what we did is we let ourselves locked in at night so we could sleep in there and see the. I mean, it was easy, right? It was 70s or
Yeah,
something, and
except for all those ghosts wandering around. Did they
that
bother
was
you at
cool.
all?
No, that was really cool. So we slept on the Acropolis, and then the morning is beautiful because you can see the light, the sun rise on the Pirée, the port
Uh-huh.
of Athens. It was like, and then we
Wow.
wait for the gates to open to exit.
And
So
then
pretty
you were
cool.
arrested.
No, and actually it was a lot of people sleeping there at night, and
Wow.
after a while there was music and people drinking and music and stuff. It was really cool. It was really fun.
Nice. Nice. I've never been
You
to
could not.
Greece.
Oh, yeah. But
I've had a couple of
so,
opportunities to go, but they didn't work out. So,
you know what's crazy about Greece, right? I go to Greece and I buy that map, right? Because the first time I went, the second time I took a car. I drove my car. Well, as soon as I turned 18, I got my permit and I drove. I took off. And then when I get there, I had a map of Greece, but my map was in French, right?
hmm.
But when you get there, it's all in symbols. My map was like, I have no idea what this thing is. No, that's not it. It's not even in what are those letters?
It's
Because the
the
Greek is
yeah, the old
it,
Greek alphabet. It's not a
it's
Latin
like
alphabet.
triangle, square, house, and you're trying
Yeah.
to decipher that with your map, and you're like, oh my God, that's not gonna work.
Well,
So,
it's like going to Japan, the street
oh
signs
yeah,
are even if you know the name of the street you're looking for, you can't read the signs. So
in Arabia, anywhere, yeah, man. Anyway, sorry.
in Israel, and I think
Oh
this is
wow,
true in a lot of
yeah,
places in the Mideast, everything is trilingual. So
yeah,
every
right.
sign on the road you see, it's got Hebrew, Arabic, and English.
Now it is, but now when I was
Now,
young, there was none of
yeah,
that.
Right,
No, no,
right.
no. It was one language. That was it. So if
Well,
I
it used to be
when I go to
even in France. I mean, when you in the 60s, everything was in French. Now,
well,
you go to a train station anywhere in
I know.
Europe, and it's in 3 or 4 or 5 different languages. That they it's at least French, German, English, and usually
Oh yeah,
Italian, sometimes
Spain or
you know.
Italy. Italy.
Yeah, so it's I mean, it's great for travelers, especially for people that don't, and even if you speak another language, you don't speak every language. So if you're traveling around Europe, it's nice to have some. I still think it's important to learn how to read signs in another language, but that's just me.
Well, you kind of have to. I
Yeah,
know everything is translated, but you want to learn. You want to learn something. So my son is learning Spanish and French. I tell him it's very important for your brain to learn
yeah,
different languages. It makes your
yeah.
brain really efficient at thinking any type of perspective because you have to put yourself in a different perspective to the language is very illustrative and imaged in
Hmm.
in in the own culture. So you have to kind of stop and think, when you speak Spanish or when you speak French or English, the imagery is different. The
Right.
perspective of thought is different. So you have to think harder, which is really
Yeah.
good because you observe a new perspective. Simple, very important.
Right. When you speak Spanish, you speak in a different order. The words are
Right.
ordered differently, and
And the images are different.
I just
Anyway.
read a thing where all these language experts and teachers got together, and they they decided that the most difficult language in the world to learn is Mandarin Chinese, they
Oh
say.
wow.
And basically it's because it's such a heavily tonal language. You can have the same word can mean several different things, very different things, just depending on how you
Yeah,
inflect
right.
it. And they decided amongst themselves that the easiest language to learn is Spanish
Oh
because
wow.
it's so straightforward.
Um,
Letters are the same no matter what word everything's the same. I would say any Romance language is like that. French, Italian. I think they're very logical in the way they're put together. French is
right.
difficult for English speakers because the sounds are very different. Um, but when you read the language, when you look at the language on paper, it's very logical. It makes sense.
It's
Same with
weird.
Italian.
It's weird because French is very easy for French people.
I know. I'm always impressed with how smart French people are that they learn French
Yeah,
so
I know,
young.
right?
Um,
Done. This is done.
I
So
don't see
all I
anything.
did is
That looks like wood. Ah, there we go.
we're done.
Very nice.
Perfect.
Did you put any
So
oil
all
on them or anything, or you just stuck
I
them in just
sometimes I
like
do,
that?
sometimes I don't. But sometimes I do, yeah. It gives a little crispy. This is fun, right? Perfect. So now I just baked it just like that, 45 minutes or something until it's soft, right? You can put a
Hmm.
skewer in there, and that's it. I have sweet potato. This awesome.
Very nice.
Good. All right.
So,
So we're done with Halloween.
we're pretty much done with Halloween.
So you were going to say something about the
Oh,
gourd. Where is it from? The
well,
that
pumpkins, squash,
pumpkin. Yeah.
squash all comes from North America. It all comes from. I mean, in fact, when the Spaniards first went to what is now Mexico, they were kind of astounded to see these Aztec warriors who were so hale and hearty and strong and healthy. And their diet consisted basically of corn, squash, beans, and chilies. And it just didn't seem like that was enough to support life. And yet they were very healthy. I mean, they ate some meat and some seafood, but not a lot. They didn't have chickens, they didn't have cows, they didn't have lamb, they didn't have pigs, any of that stuff that we think of as the traditional
Yeah.
meats, but they had smaller meats, rodents. They had birds. They had lots of fowl.
Yeah.
Um,
And they eat those little pig, whatever, those little
yeah, like little kind of guinea pig kind of
yeah,
things. Which,
yeah, yeah.
but
They eat a lot of
so
it.
So yeah, so squash was very important to, and I learned recently that pumpkins, which are so central, of course, to Halloween decorations, are the one of the oldest cultivated plants.
Oh
They're
yeah.
ancient,
Wow.
ancient, go back thousands of years. Of course, they're relatively new to Western cuisine because they didn't. It was all post Columbus. But in Mexico and South America, squash were eaten for thousands and thousands of years. It was a really important source of nutrients, vitamins,
Yeah.
and um, but I also read that in terms of Halloween, in terms of the whole All Hallowed Eve thing and the Day of the Dead and All Saints Day and all that stuff, that there are two foods that figure very prominently into those rituals, and those are apples, which were associated with immortality and the sort of the other world. Interesting. And again, that's because you look at when are apples available. Well, apples, you harvest apples in the fall, and that's when they become good, and then you sustain all winter. And the other is hazelnuts, which were associated with
Wow.
divine wisdom. So to this day, a lot of these things figure into Halloween celebrations. Bobbing for apples, toffee apples. Um, and it makes sense because, like I said, this is when apples are at their best right now. Um, by the way, we planted a little apple tree in our garden several
Whoa.
years ago, and it was small, and it's been growing nicely, and we've been taking care of it. And each year it produces a few apples, and the squirrels used to
Wow.
get to them before we did. Well,
Ah.
this year we when the apples started, when it was all in bud, we covered the tree with bird netting and tied it off at the bottom. And so the squirrels couldn't get to the apples. And we had such a harvest this year. We've been making tarts
Wow.
and
Oh my God.
applesauce and
Are they
all
good?
kinds of
Are
stuff.
they?
They're really good. They're really
What
good.
type
They're
of
really
apples?
crisp and sweet. I think they're are they Brayburns? I forget exactly. I'll have to ask.
There's lots of style of
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But these are
this-
crisp. They're really good for baking. We've had a couple of outstanding apple tarts. Um, really good stuff. And then we've cooked them with pork chops, and I love cooking apples with pork chops. It's one of the best combinations. You
so
know,
let
Waverly
me tell
Root,
you.
Waverly Root, who was a famous food writer, he said at the end of his life, he had a little farm in Vermont, and he said that he had these pigs, and he used to feed them apples from the
Yeah,
orchard, and he said
right.
it was the best tasting pork he'd ever had in his life. It was like just
Wow.
built-in applesauce with the pork.
Is that why they served the pig in France with an apple in their mouth they were
I
eating when
think so. I think
they were
so.
killed, right? They were like,
Yeah,
here, have
yeah,
an apple. So the difference between pears and apple is actually pretty interesting. It's the same family, and they come
right.
from the plum
Poem,
family.
right.
And the difference is, when you chew on an apple, it's very loud, right? It pops because there's a lot of air in apples. There's about 24% air. So when you crush on it, it really makes a lot of noise because of the pectin.
Uh-huh.
And pears have only maybe 4%. It's very dense. So
Right.
they get much heavier and denser, much more dense. So they cook faster than the apples, which takes longer for some reason.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that. I knew they were related, but I never thought of it
Right.
in terms of the air
Density,
and the
density.
density. Yeah. I always thought it was very charming that in France the potato was called pomme de terre
Yeah, that's funny, huh?
because it was such a new food and they couldn't figure out, so that it's
It
sort of
was
looks like
new
an
for a lot
apple.
of, yeah, it was new from a lot of people. They was from Parmentier, who was uh, Parmentier is the person who is a doctor who was he was a prisoner in Germany, and they were feeding that to them, and he took that back to France, and people didn't want
Oh,
to eat that, right?
huh.
And I know when they started to do this, in order for French people to be able to eat the potatoes, what they did is on the field of potatoes, they put armed guard from the king, right?
Oh, right.
But they would go home at 5 p.m. So they would go home at night, right? So people they thought it was very fancy stuff that they were protecting, so they would go and steal the potatoes
Oh, they thought they
because,
were being very clever and they'd go out there and steal the potatoes.
and then they would bake them and cook them and eat them, and the potato became a very important source of nutrients. Even in Ireland, where after that they lost their potatoes, right?
Well, they were growing basically one kind of potato and they depended on it almost
Exactly.
entirely at one point. And then
So
when a
monocrop,
blight,
yeah,
yeah, when a blight struck and started killing off the potatoes, they were
that's
literally
it.
starving to death.
Yeah, it tells you how monocropping is very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah,
It's literally putting your eggs in the same basket. That's what it means, right?
exactly, exactly. Well, I just think it's a great coincidence that this guy, this Dr. Parmentier, was named, that he had a name that was also the name of a famous potato dish.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
ashi. My God, man, I used to do that. I used to eat that a lot. So this is, you could do a nice ashi. Let's talk about this. It's fun, right? That ground meat I made could be an ashi parmentier. Super easy. So now
Yeah,
I have my, right? I have my meat. I can do meat in the bottom of the pie, mashed potato on top, little cheese, and go in the oven, crisp it, and serve that just like that.
right. In the
So
UK,
mashed
they'd
potato,
call that shepherd's pie,
shepherd's pie, yes,
except it would traditionally be made with lamb instead of beef.
right.
But we make it
Because
with beef
lamb,
sometimes, but it's good with lamb.
yeah. And the spring one is with peas and carrot and stuff like that. What is
Yeah,
that?
yep,
That's pretty good too.
it's very good. Yeah, I
And you can
love
do it with
peas.
sweet potato. So that I can mash my
Yeah,
sweet potato, put that
yeah.
on top, just like that. Go in the oven just to crisp it, and that's it. I have. Well, that's
You can
great. I might just do that.
you can do most things with sweet potatoes that you can do with regular potatoes. Fries, mashed. You could even make a Spanish omelet with sweet potatoes, which would be kind of interesting. I've never
Did
done
you
that.
try it? It must be too sweet, in my
I
opinion.
bet it would be very, very rich and, like you say, very sweet. I don't know. I don't know
Sweet.
if
I
I'd
mean,
like it or not.
I love sweet potatoes. I like it better than potatoes because it's healthier, less starch, more nutrients. But I don't know about the tortilla though.
Yeah, that might be a
It's
little
pretty
much.
sweet.
I don't actually usually put potatoes in my tortillas anyway. I usually just use other vegetables, onions. Um, Sometimes
Yeah.
it's whatever we have. You just like clean
I,
out the fridge and throw it
what
all in
what
with a.
was what was good, what we used to make at Cesar is that very rarely she would do the tuna tortilla. That was good.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
With the tuna confit. Oh my God, that was good.
Yeah, yeah,
Lots of eggs,
yeah.
tuna. What else do you need? Nothing.
It's interesting how that tortilla became something completely different in the new world. I mean, it basically means small cake. A
And
tortilla,
Italy,
it's a
and Italy,
diminutive form. Yeah, it's a frittata in Italy.
frittata, a little fried
Yeah,
something.
yeah, they're all diminutive words. And in Mexico, it became like this, like basically flatbread that is
And
what we think of as a tortilla today.
In France, my mom used to do that. I'm sorry, my great grandmother used to do that for the hunters when they would come to the inn to bring their hunt, their stuff for my great grandmother to cook for the evening, right? So they would bring that to the inn. Meanwhile, they had to eat something, and they were eating something called mange tout. It's eggs, potato, and lard all
Yeah,
together in a big.
that that's a good thing to eat when you've come in from the woods and you're cold and you're
It's
hungry.
cold. It was Auvergne.
That and some
It
wine.
was in winter, Calvados.
Oh, Calvados, yeah.
They drink Calvados when they go to the woods. They come back and they drink wine. And when you go to the wood, it's cold, which is a big mistake anyway. Alcohol does not protect against the cold, just so you know. It
No,
does the opposite.
it actually
It does the
lowers your
opposite.
body temperature.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. I just learned about this from the crazy Russians in those cities that are super
Hmm.
cold. There's some crazy, like what minus something crazy. And the guy was saying that alcohol is actually a mistake.
It
I
is,
didn't think of it. Yeah, right. But it
but
feels good.
it still feels good going down.
Right.
I mean, if you drink too
That's what I'm
much of it,
saying.
it's going to be bad for you, but that's true anyway.
Right.
But if you're out in the woods and you're cold, you take a little shot of
It feels good,
Calvados.
huh?
It
I
really
agree.
feels good.
I know. That's so anyway.
Or any kind of brandy. I
whatever.
used to keep a bottle of. I'm not a big vodka drinker, but I used to keep a bottle of vodka in the freezer all the time, and just
You're not that
every.
big. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like you can't really see. See, I can. You can see me. You can't see James
yeah. It's
because
just
he's
that
hiding behind the mask.
this is basically it. My legs start here, and they're about this big.
I can see a little bit of your shoes.
I'm actually 3 feet tall, but the
All right,
camera adds height.
Jimbo. I figured out how to do my interview on site, so I think I'm all set up to go somewhere. So
Okay,
I think I'd love to go see Alberto Solis. You know the.
like to see Alberto and
Is it
Farid.
far
I've been.
away? Is it far
It's
away?
not. It's not close. It's a bit
Ah,
of a drive. It's up there a little ways. Um, but also Farid is very close. He's in Richmond with
Farid.
his distillery. I've been trying
I
to get
want
a
to.
hold of him, and I haven't been successful. But I will keep
Oh wow.
trying.
And then I want to see what's his name? Our bartender has a farm in
Oh yeah,
what's his name?
yeah. Um,
Where is he? 2 hours from now?
our
Two
close
hours from
friend,
here.
what's his name?
Our best friend, Scotty.
Scott. Yeah, Scott Baird. He's got a little
Is there.
farmstead up there that he's
I
doing
want
all
to.
kinds of things. That
Well, I
would be
want to go see
fun.
him. Oh my God. So anyway, so we're all set up. I want to do, and also there's this my one of my students. She's a vegetarian, and she's a vegetarian because of the how animals are treated. It's not even a health thing. So I told her I'm gonna go to a farm and show her how it's done because you can't just not eat something because
Right.
you're
But
thinking about,
we want to show how it can be done. So
yeah, what should
she's
be done.
she's right that
Yeah,
there is a lot of the meat that's produced in this country and around the world is done in a very in a way that's very
terrible way.
detrimental to the animals. The animals suffer, they don't have a good life.
And it's not even
Uh,
good meat for you. So
right,
let's take that from the start. If let's say I want to eat and I don't care about the animals because I'm first, which would be understandable. But in this case, it's not even true because that meat is not good. So
right,
it doesn't matter. It's like you can do both. You can do the animal happy and also the health because that is not good meat for you. So
right.
yes,
I mean, it's true that the happier the animal, the better the meat is going to be. Hey, happy Halloween, Frode. And uh,
happy Halloween,
but
man. Well,
but I also care about the welfare of the animal. I care that the animals don't suffer. It's
what?
horrible that
No, I mean,
but
it's like
but we want to show that it can be done a different way, that it was done a
right,
different way for hundreds of thousands of years up until very recently.
right.
Um, and
So
we
not
need to
hundreds
get
of
back
thousands
to
of
that.
years. Yeah, no, it was done for thousands of years for sure. Uh, but it's like um, sorry, will demonstrate that basically the animal live well in a farm. I worked in
Yeah,
a farm for a little bit. They live well. It's not, and also what's important is they don't have a future. The animals don't have a future in their head.
right,
They don't plan, so they are much happier than us because we're always thinking we're gonna die. They don't think like this. We're
right,
always thinking about dying, but don't think of stuff like it's nothing you can do about it, right? That's the main difference between us and the animal. They don't predict their future. They don't care. I mean, they just live, and you can see that because what I've always wondered is, when you see in the savannah or in the jungle, you see animal being chased and completely ripped apart by a tiger or some tiger crocodile, and the rest of the herd is like they jump and then it's gone. That's
yeah,
so weird, right?
yeah.
I mean, if he was human,
They live
they would
totally
be,
in the moment. And all
yeah,
they're interested in is eating. All they're interested in is where my food is coming
and
from.
mating,
And
and
mating. And they like
yeah,
to play. I mean, you watch squirrels, they clearly are
yeah,
playing. I
right,
mean, they
right, right.
chase each other. They're
And all young animal, they play. That's the training. That's learning.
yeah. Yeah. But
All right, cool. So
so
great.
we're going to do that. I want to go to a cow farm too. I'd love to try to go to Point Reyes
Point Reyes.
farmstead.
Point Reyes is
Point
beautiful. They do
Reyes, yeah.
amazing job. We should actually. because
And that's
we
a
went
dairy
to visit.
farm, of course. They don't raise the cattle for meat; they raise them for dairy. But again, they live a very good life, and they produce a wonderfully healthy, beautiful
Right,
product
yeah,
that
yeah,
connects us to
exactly.
the earth.
Right.
So
All right. Thank
we
you,
have 4
James.
seconds left. I just want to give a speech. Um, Happy Halloween, everyone. And
Okay, are we gonna see? Are we gonna know your face soon?
nope,
Next
I'm going
year?
to keep
Next
my
year?
identity secret. Next week, I'll be in a different disguise.
All right, you'll have a different earphone next week. All right,
Yes.
guys. Thank you all. Good to see you, everyone.